Hello, this is Mr. Martin. In this video, we're going to be discussing Section 5.5, Day 2 for Precalc Honors. So let's go ahead and take a look at the half-angle identities. And in order to derive these, what we're going to do is we're going to use our double angle identity. So for our sine 2 alpha, we had 2 sine alpha cosine alpha. And then we had 3 different ones for cosine. So for cosine 2 alpha, we had cosine squared alpha minus sine squared alpha. Or we had 1 minus 2 sine squared alpha. Or our third version of this was 2 cosine squared alpha minus 1. And we're going to primarily use the cosine 2 alpha identities for the double angle identities to derive our formulas. So let's start with the derivation of the half angle formula for sine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with cosine 2 alpha equals 1 minus 2 sine squared alpha. And I'm going to start with this one because it's got the sine in the identity already. So let's change our angle. Instead of 2 alpha, let's change it to alpha. So if I change this to cosine of alpha, then in my identity, I need to change this to sine squared of alpha over 2. Now what we need to do is just solve this for sine alpha over 2, and we will have our half angle identity. So I'm going to move the 2 sine squared alpha over 2 to the left and move the cosine over to the right. So I end up with 2 sine squared alpha over 2 is equal to 1 minus cosine alpha. I'm going to divide both sides by 2, so I get sine squared alpha over 2 is equal to 1 minus cosine alpha over 2. And then my last step is to take the square root of both sides, so sine alpha over 2 is going to be plus or minus. Don't forget the plus or minus. You're going to pick one in this case. And it's going to depend on the quadrant of our angle, theta over 2. Alright, so we have plus or minus 1 minus cosine alpha over 2. So this is the derivation of our identity for half angle for sine. Let's go ahead and derive the half angle for cosine. We'll do tangent in another video or in class. So now let's start with the identity for cosine 2 alpha that only has cosine in it. So cosine 2 alpha equals 2 cosine squared alpha minus 1. Again, I'm going to change that from 2 alpha to just alpha, which means I need to change 2 cosine squared alpha to 2 cosine squared alpha over 2 minus 1. Right, so I'm going to rearrange a little bit. So I've got 2 cosine squared alpha over 2 is going to be 1 plus cosine alpha. Again, just rearranging. Divide both sides by 2. Cosine squared alpha over 2 is equal to 1 plus cosine alpha over 2. And again, we'll take the square root of both sides. Cosine alpha over 2 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 1 plus cosine alpha over 2. And again, wherever our theta over 2 is, that's going to determine whether it's positive or negative. Alright, so if you have questions about those, make sure that you check in with me and get your questions answered. Let's go ahead and take a look at some examples here. So we're going to use the half angle formula to find the exact value of cosine 15. So cosine 15 degrees is really cosine of 30 degrees divided by 2. So make sure your parentheses, when you simplify it, it gives you the angle that you're working with. So we're just going to substitute this into our formula. So we're going to get the square root of 1 plus cosine 30 degrees divided by 2. And the cosine of 30, that's pi over 6, so the cosine is going to be root 3 over 2. So that's 1 plus root 3 over 2 divided by 2. And let's see, that's going to be 2 over 2 plus root 3 over 2, all divided by 2. So we get the square root of 2 plus root 3 over 2 divided by 2, which is going to give us the square root of 2 plus root 3 over 4, because this is really 2 over 1, so we'll multiply by the reciprocal. And then we get the square root of 2 plus root 3. The square root of 4 in the denominator is just 2. All right. And again, I'm moving kind of fast through these, so if you need to pause it or rewind it, feel free to do that as needed and get all your questions answered. Let's move on to example number 2. So we've got the cosine of alpha is negative 3/5, and alpha is between pi and 3 pi over 2. So if it's between pi and 3 pi over 2, that means it's going to be in the third quadrant, and the cosine is negative 3/5, so this is negative 3. Our hypotenuse is 5. Our opposite side is going to be negative 4. And now we can find the sine of alpha over 2. So this is going to be the square root of 1 minus the cosine of alpha, so that's negative 3/5, divided by 2. So this 1 here is really 2 over 2. So I get, oh, and since we're in the third quadrant for my angle here, that means that alpha over 2 is going to be somewhere between 180 divided by 2 and 270 divided by 2. So 180 divided by 2 is 90, and 270 divided by 2 is going to give us 135. So that means that alpha over 2 is going to be between 90 and 135, which puts us in the second quadrant. So the sign in the second quadrant is positive. All right, so that gives us the square root of 2. This should be 5 over 5. I'm sure some of you caught that well before I did there. So 5 over 5. So 5 plus 3 is 8. So 8/5 divided by 2. It's really 2 over 1. So when I multiply by the reciprocal, it's going to be the square root of 8/10, which is going to reduce to 4/5. So when I rationalize my denominator there, I'm going to multiply by root 5 over root 5. Square root of 4 is 2 on the numerator, so it's going to be 2 root 5 over 5. Again, if I skip some steps there and you want me to fill those in, feel free to ask me in class. Moving on to part B. Cosine of alpha over 2, again, we're going to be in the second quadrant somewhere between 90 and 135, so this is going to be negative square root of 1 plus cosine alpha, so plus negative 3/5 all over 2. So this again is going to be 5 over 5. So 5 minus 3 is 2, so that's the square root of 2/5 over 2. That's really a 2 over 1. So that's the square root of 2/10, which reduces to 1/5. fifth. And if we rationalize that, it becomes the square root of 5 over 5. Again, that's going to be negative because it's in the second quadrant. And moving on to our tangent. Tangent alpha over 2. Tangent in the second quadrant for alpha over 2 is going to be negative. So it's going to be negative square root of 1 minus negative 3/5 over 1 plus negative 3/5. So it's 5/5 plus 3/5, which is 8/5, divided by 5/5 minus 3/5, which is 2/5. So that gives us negative square root of 8/5 times 5/2. Let's do a little reducing. Those cancel out and become 1s. This is a 1 and this is a 4, so we end up with the square root of 4, which is just negative 2. There we go. All right, so again, if you have any questions, make sure you ask. And also keep in mind we have some other versions of the half angle formula for tangent. So these might be convenient at certain times. Definitely easier to simplify. You're not going to have to worry about rationalizing denominators most of the time. That's going to be the end for this video. We'll see you guys next time.